To today's video. Today is Wednesday, July 30th, 2025, and today we are going to be talking about the state of Virginia and the House of Delegates race, as well as the governor's race, the lieutenant governor's race, and everything that is involved in this state as we go full steam ahead into this year's November election. Virginia is one of the states that is being closely watched by everybody in the political sphere as one of the prime states to show the first substantive pushback against this second Trump administration, a state that Kamala Harris won in the last presidential election by a margin of roughly 6 points, narrower than where it was in the 2020 presidential election, is now facing a challenge this year with a Republican and Democratic nominee at which Virginia will elect its first woman governor, not to mention the fact there is a Republican incumbent, Governor Glenn Youngkin, who is ineligible to run for re-election. His lieutenant governor, Winsome Sears, is running against Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger in this general election. But as things have unfolded across the state of Virginia over the past year, the numbers have only gotten better and better for the Democratic Party as it has developed. The most recent analysis we are now seeing here from State Navigate shows that Virginia Democrats are the overwhelming favorites to win the majority in the House of Delegates as well as in the governorship, with a 96, yes, you heard that correctly, 96% chance of winning the governorship. They have a 58 seats they are expected to win across the board, a 92% chance of winning the control of the Virginia House of Delegates. Now, just as a refresher, just a bit of understanding about the state of Virginia. As I mentioned, Kamala Harris defeated Donald Trump in this state by a margin of roughly 6 points, 5.91% to be exact, in the last election. It was a margin that Democrats were pretty comfortable with, but was narrower than where it was under Biden. By comfortable, I mean comfortable enough going into 2025 that there still was that expectation that they win the governorship in this election cycle. But the last time we actually saw the Virginia House of Delegates elections up was in 2023 under President Biden. And we saw that although Democrats did win back House control from the Republicans, it is still a very, very, very narrow majority, one that only slightly gets by a tied chamber. So Democrats currently hold 51 seats in the Virginia House of Delegates. The expectation is that they win about 58. Now, this model here was extraordinarily accurate in the past, and it really is interesting to see that if Democrats are at 58 in the most likely outcome, the chances of them actually reaching about 60 seats is roughly the same of that of the Republicans actually winning the chamber, which is quite interesting, right? 60 seats would be a very substantive advantage, but also if you get closer and closer to the point where you reach a supermajority, about 67 seats, Republicans have an equal chance of winning the majority as Democrats do winning a supermajority in this state. So obviously not great numbers here for the GOP. The governorship looks a lot more bleak here. Abigail Spanberger is expected to win by a whopping 11 percentage points across the state. And the reason why that is significant is that although Kamala Harris did win this state by about 6 points in the last cycle, in 2021, Republicans only won this state by about 2, and in 2017, Democrats actually won it by less than they are expected to this time around. In 2017, Democrats, we can pull up the governor map here if we just scroll all the way back, won Virginia by about 8.9%. So thinking about where it is today, the fact remains, Democrats might do better in Virginia this time than they did under Donald Trump's first term, which might have tremendous implications for what that means in the 2026 midterm elections. But looking at what coincided with the 2017 elections, again, Democrats won by 8.9%. And to be fair, Hillary Clinton did defeat Donald Trump in this state by about 4.5 points, 5.5 points. When you look at the 2017 House of Delegates race, it wasn't so great for Democrats. Republicans actually ended up winning more seats than Democrats here, and a singular vote flipped control of the Virginia House of Delegates from Democratic control with the lieutenant governor to Republican control, 51-49. But Democrats still gained 15 seats. The map here was gerrymandered in favor of the Republican Party, so it was quite difficult for Democrats to win back control in the future. They did so in 2018. They got to a point where they were able to actually win control of the Virginia House of Delegates. But again, this is pretty much, the most the Democrats have had in the state House of Delegates in terms of a majority in a very long time. So this was quite a first for them. And when you look back at years past, you can see the Democratic control in the Virginia House of Delegates really was never that strong. Even in 2009, when Democrats were able, or not 2009, but when Obama had just been elected, I mean, you will see going back, Democrats had not won the House of Delegates in a very long time. So if Democrats truly are to get at 58 to 42, this would be the largest governing majority for Democrats in the House of Delegates they have seen in this century and in decades. And the fact remains, too, that the governor's race has an even higher chance of Democrats winning the outright governorship for Abigail Spanberger, defeating the incumbent lieutenant governor. And so what I think we will take away from this, and we are learning very quickly, that is Virginia is one of those states that in its close proximity to Washington, D.C., has been very much upset with the way at which President Donald Trump and his administration have maneuvered with federal workers in the Northern Virginia region, in the absence of care for rural areas and Medicaid cuts across the country that also will be impactful in states like Virginia, even in areas that are very pro for the incumbent president. Donald Trump really has alienated a lot of this country, and Virginia is an excellent example of the electoral repercussions of doing such things. Virginia being this state that, again, not only close in proximity, but in terms of direct impact of the way that this administration has been handling DOGE, has been handling federal cuts, has been handling funding freezes, has been handling this big, beautiful bill, you are seeing it through and through in a state like Virginia, where Spanberger, who has ran a strong campaign, Winsome Sears has had a very scandal-plagued campaign, and it is having a down-ballot effect on the Republicans across the board. I mean, I look at this and I see clear as day, the Democrats are in a very, very strong position. You know, when I take a look at where they are across the board, and I'm looking at, the possibility that Spanberger wins with 56% of the vote across the state, I see a blowout in Virginia, not just in the governor's race and then in the House of Delegates race, but everywhere across the board. And looking, too, at the 2025 races in Virginia, maybe we can actually get there if we can, jump ahead on the map here. It isn't just going to be the numbers here. We can look at the elections that are being held in the state of Virginia. We have to get past a massive amount of Wikipedia scrolling. But when we take a look at the Virginia Lieutenant Governor's race, when we take a look at the Virginia Attorney General's race, I mean, it is pretty clear here that Democrats, with the right governor nominee, which they have, you will find them carried across the finish line. 2021 was a great year for Republicans because they were able to really crack the code. Glenn Youngkin won, Winsome Sears won. We saw the Republicans win. I believe that is, yes, Jason Miyares won in the 2021 race against, going on a third term Democratic incumbent in the Attorney General's race. But the point is that it was Youngkin that brought these Republicans across the finish line, ushered them in a House of Delegates win, ushered them in a governor's win, a lieutenant governor's win, an attorney general's win. That is the same thing that will happen this time around. And so when I think about what's gonna go down in the 2025 race, is essentially that Democrats will win in a huge section of the country, of the state rather, that Republicans currently hold on to. They will flip seats across the southern region of the state too, and not to mention, there are some races here that are really on the edge of going to the Democratic Party. For instance, Virginia's 30th, that here right now, party odds, 54% chance the Republicans win. If Democrats see an improvement between now and November, that could be seat 59. Another seat that's right now in favor of the GOP, but not too heavily, you have a seat right here. Republicans have a 60% chance of winning. If Democrats get that one, that's seat 60. And you start to see exactly where the numbers can be brought out to find yourself in the times where you have Democrats having an outright supermajority in the Virginia House of Delegates. It's not the likeliest outcome, and it's not what we're expecting to happen. But the fact remains that it is equal chances of a Democratic supermajority as it is of Republicans winning an outright majority. And that should terrify the Republican Party and really show them exactly what 2026 could be if Donald Trump doesn't get his act together. The numbers just aren't good. The way Donald Trump is approved of in Virginia is starting to rival the numbers that we see not just in Virginia, but across the country and in some battleground states. As voters start to sour on Donald Trump and his approval rating and the way they view his administration, the more likely they are to vote for Democrats, or the more likely they are to not vote at all. And a combination of factors, again, all caused by the incumbent president, are how you end up with numbers like these, where Democrats reach higher points than even in the 2017 election that led to the eventual Democratic president, Joe Biden. And so I think about that and I'm like, this is crazy, right? You look at this and you say, Democrats being in a better position than under Trump 1 is something that was largely unfathomable, right? 3-4 months ago when the approval rating looked a lot better than it did under Trump 1. I mean, for the first month and a half, Donald Trump's approval rating maintained itself in the positive when it took just 14 days to put Donald Trump underwater in the first term. And so the fact that we're even getting to a point where Democrats can do even better this cycle really is interesting. And I think certainly makes a difference in how we, one, should be perceiving the race, and two, how we should be drawing conclusions from it as the race continues, not just after November 2025 and not just after November 2026, but what it means as there will be an incumbent Republican and another presidential election in just 3 years. And I know it feels like we just came off 2024, but it is these elections that really show, yes, we're moving along the timeline here. We're moving along the point where we are starting to find that Donald Trump is dooming the Republican Party in more ways than one. In New Jersey, another great example. I mean, we didn't spend much time talking about it in this video, and we really shouldn't because we're focusing here on Virginia. But looking at the 2025 races, I'm interested to see what happens in the state of New Jersey. Why? Because the governor's race probably should be way closer than it was in 2021. Republicans got Virginia down to a 6-point margin in 2024, way better than in 2020. And in 2021, just 3 years after Biden won the state by 16, Democrats only won it by about 3. And so fast forward to 2025, Republicans should be in a much better position if the state shifted 10 points to the right from the 2020 cycle. But chances are Republicans are going to be doomed again by Donald Trump and his association with Jack Ciattarelli in the state of New Jersey. That is the way these elections are won by the Democratic Party. Yes, they also are running better campaigns, certainly better than we've seen in recent memory, with Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger having largely very strong campaigns and scandal-free campaigns, at least to their benefit. And there's time before November, but they are running, again, very strong campaigns. Looking at what we found, the numbers don't lie. Democrats being better positioned today than they were 8 years ago is important. Democrats being well positioned off an approval rating that is higher today than it was 8 years ago is noteworthy and something to think about. Because although the numbers might show that Donald Trump and this administration aren't as doomed on their end, what they are doing to the Republican Party across the country is dooming them. States that should be shifting in a direction that is positive for the GOP are reversing at record speed. Seats that should be won by the Republican Party are locked in and solid for the Democratic Party at record pace. The enthusiasm gap that we are seeing, we'll talk about it tomorrow, between Democrats and Republicans is massive. And of those who expect to vote in these upcoming elections, 2025, special elections, off-cycle elections, midterm elections, Democrats lead the bunch. And there's one common denominator here. It is Donald Trump's influence on the political climate that without him being on the ballot, Republicans fall apart. Because he isn't there to bring out his base, and he turns off everybody else. And that is the reason why Democrats are in such a strong position. So to recap, 96% chance of winning governor for the Democrats, 92% chance they win the majority in the House of Delegates, and a high chance they win a near supermajority in the House of Delegates. Huge, huge advantages for the Democratic Party. Again, a lot of it has to do with Donald Trump and the impact on a state like Virginia. But it is results like these that might be replicated elsewhere that should terrify the Republican Party going into the next midterm cycle. Because if anything is like what it was in 2017, but slightly worse, 2026 is going to look a lot better for Democrats than they are hoping and looking at today with all this conversation around Texas, Republicans, Ohio, whatever it might be. Because these elections will be the first to tell us the full story about pushback against Donald Trump a second time around. And it looks like Democrats might do better this time than the first time, which would be groundbreaking for them going into the next cycle. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video for you to watch, and then a playlist for my 2025 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.